Hi, I'm John. I'm an actual 911 dispatcher. I'm joined tonight by my Authentic Cop podcasting partner, Drew. We're going to break down a case from Flagler County, Florida, of a 911 caller who saw a possible abduction in progress and dialed 911, stayed on the line, and guided police towards a critical arrest and the safe recovery of some kidnapped victims. A heroic thing to do, but would you do the same thing in his place? We'll look at two other cases where it didn't turn out so well for the 911 callers. This is the Comm Center. Before we get started, make sure you hit like and subscribe and scroll down and leave a comment if you want to see more content just like this. If you were driving home and you saw a hit and run, would you call 911 and then follow the suspect? What if you saw a woman struggling in the back of a car? This video isn't here to tell you what to do. That's what your conscience and a lawyer are for. The views expressed on this video do not represent any particular agency or department. Make sure you always abide by the law and take all precautions for your safety. Let's talk about a recent case that happened in Flagler County, Florida, and for that, I'm going to bring in authentic Florida cop, Drew Breezy. Drew, another typical Florida crime case. Let's take a look.
Bystander speaks up, leading to two people being put in cuffs, one of them just 15 years old.
Yeah, started at his traffic stop and ended with a chase, and has a missing child with their family back home for the new year. Fox 35's Larissa Leone joins us live. So, Larissa, what do we know about the two people who were arrested here?
Well, John, so far we know that Flagler County deputies say that a 6-year-old was arrested and a 15-year-old boy was also arrested. But there is still a lot we do not know about this case. But this is what they tell me thus far.
Turn around, put your hands behind your back.
Flagler County Chief Deputy Joe Barilli says around 7 a.m. on December 31st, Flagler County stopped this white Ford F-150 on U.S. Highway 1 near Whiteview Drive. During the stop, you can see deputies identifying this driver as 6-year-old Darnell Hairston, along with two juvenile passengers in the vehicle.
The reporting party stated that there was a vehicle that possibly had a missing juvenile in it.
When deputies asked the drivers to exit the vehicle for questioning, you can see Hairston running away, tripping into the roadway. Officers then working to get him into custody, and Hairston attempting to grab a deputy's gun. After that, the 15-year-old did the unexpected.
The other juvenile entered the driver's seat of the truck that was pulled over and fled the scene, almost running over the deputies that were securing Hairston on the ground.
After placing Hairston in custody, deputies then chased after the 15-year-old, and just as they neared the Putnam County line,
we had one of our units go around the suspect vehicle, go in front of it in an attempt to slow it down, kind of as a rolling roadblock. He was driving very reckless. At times, it looked to be intentionally driving in the path of oncoming traffic. So deputy got in front, positioned himself in the right lane of travel. That's when the driver of the truck went into the left lane, appearing to attempt to pass the patrol car, but then at some point, he ended up just turning the wheel as hard as he can, and you can see it pretty clear in the video and strike our deputy's patrol car, which caused both of them to crash.
After the teen exits the vehicle, deputies quickly arrest him. During all of this, a second deputy lost control of his patrol car and hit an automotive repair building. Those deputies were treated for minor injuries and are expected to be okay. Deputies arrested Hairston for resisting an officer with violence and attempting to deprive a law enforcement officer of their firearm. The 15-year-old teen is also facing several charges.
It's obviously a police officer facing the danger of a vehicle on the road being aimed at them is something we're talking about a lot. It's something that you are familiar with in Hillsborough County. I remember, I think it was 2023 or 24, where a Hillsborough County sheriff's deputy was struck by a car. A very serious case, very dangerous. But before we dive into the body cam or dash cam footage that we just saw, let's go back to how we got here, which is with a 911 call. I'm going to play portions of that now.
What's the location of your emergency?
Yes, ma'am. There's a child pedophile with two kids in his truck. One's a runaway.
Where are you at, sir?
He's coming down US 1. His name's Darnell.
Do you know this person?
He's our neighborhood child pedophile. And there's two missing kids that run away from out there. And he's got two teenage boys in the back of his truck.
You don't have to continue following.
Oh, no. I'm following until I see a cop pull his over, because he's got two kids in his car. Because if a cop don't pull him over, I'm going to pull him over, and it ain't going to be pretty.
All right, I appreciate it. Law enforcement stopped the vehicle.
Yeah, they got him. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
He's like, yeah, he's just our neighborhood pedophile. Like, everybody kind of knows this guy. So there's the first thing. Like, and he's following this car, and he's saying, look, I'm not giving up. There's no way, because if you don't handle it, I'm going to handle it, which I'm sure we're going to talk about in a second. And then, like, from a cop standpoint, I'm glad everybody made it out alive. You know, I'm not big on pursuits. This, by the way, would be an example, a great example of when to pursue. You definitely want to pursue in something like this. You got a kidnapped kid with a pedophile.
A dispatcher or a deputy running his name is going to be able to tell you whether he's a compliant or non-compliant sex offender within minutes, and that he shouldn't be in a company of a child. But understanding that a 15-year-old who's also there as a co-conspirator and is willing to take off with the vehicle is obviously not something that they considered, Drew.
It's pretty scary.
Seen 911 callers. This guy is being hailed as a hero. I don't think anyone can really argue with that, because he knew the identity of this guy. He knew the identity of his neighborhood sex offender, which I think maybe everyone should know. If you have children or just someone that you care about, you ought to know where they're at in your community. But also paying attention to the fact that kids had run away in the neighborhood. This guy's vigilant. He's probably what Drew would call a very good citizen. And it all worked out. But as I did allude to earlier, he did sort of threaten that if the police didn't take adequate action, he would get involved.
You don't have to continue following.
Oh, no, I'm following until I see a cop pull his over, because he's got two kids in his car. Because if a cop don't pull him over, I'm going to pull him over, and it ain't going to be pretty.
And it got me thinking this morning, well, this other case that we handled, was it a summer or 2 summers ago? Hannah Payne, she dialed 911. She saw a crash. 62-year-old Kenneth Herring. What a wonderful guy. He hit a truck and drove away. He didn't want the consequences, or he was out of his mind. He took off, and Hannah got in her car and took after Kenneth Herring. Dispatcher told her to stay safe and not to follow, and Hannah said she'd only get the license plate. Let's listen to the call.
Payne County 911, what's the location of your emergency? But I am under the impression that the guy that caused the accident, who ran the red light, is drunk, and he's gotten back in his car, and he's looking like he's trying to drive away. Okay, can you get his tag number? Hold on, he's driving away. Okay, so you couldn't get a tag number? No, but I'm catching up to him right now. Okay, ma'am, we actually do not want you to chase him. We just want you to be safe. And it's I understand. To chase him. You can't Ma'am. Ma'am! Yes. Ma'am, he just pulled the trigger of my gun in my hand while he was. Ma'am, you were not supposed to follow him. He hit my car! Okay, you got the tag number.
Hannah said she followed. The prosecutor said she pursued, and that made her the aggressor in the final confrontation. The semantics between those two words changed the rest of Hannah's life. Videotape shows the confrontation, called by some as vigilante justice, and as a citizen's arrest by others. They struggled. Hannah was assaulted. Kenneth was shot. He died at the hospital. Hannah said she was protecting the public. She was convicted by the jury of malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, and weapons charges. There's right, there's wrong, and then there's the law, which didn't protect Hannah regardless of her intent. A young life thrown away over a traffic crash or a principle. Would you do the same? It didn't work out for Hannah. She's doing something like 60 years in prison, and the best years of her life are going to be wasted away. Drew, what are your thoughts on that, on the same intent but opposite outcomes for these two callers?
So in Hannah's case, she never made mention of having a gun. She never said anything to the sort of being violent. She literally just said, no, I'm not chasing him. I'm just following him. Right. This guy specifically said, now the crimes are different.
Said, if you don't do it, I'm going to do it, and it's not going to be fucking good. I mean, he, like I said, he made overt threats of harm against someone that he doesn't have really the authority to make that force against.
Yeah.
So,
What it reminds me of to you, John, though, is your conscientiousness as somebody who works in the industry, and you know your community. And I think that whoever that was on the phone with that guy knows that this guy, he identified him as our neighborhood pedophile. And then he said, oh no, I'm sticking with it until the cops get here, because if you guys don't handle it, I'm going to handle it. And was very explicit about what was in there. Like, yeah, there's 2 young boys in there, and he's known to do these types of crimes. And so he was like overt about, oh no, it's going down. So then you got to wonder too, John, like what would the jury in that area think? What would a jury of his peers do?
I think that the way you're framing it too is really important because the caller talks about a registered sex offender in the area and a felony is in progress, that he's in the company of these two minors, which he's not allowed to be. And they're possibly runaways. It's obvious to see what a dangerous situation this is. For Kenneth Herring, the way that he was completely framed was totally different. So he's the 62-year-old grandfather, a nice guy.
Yeah.
We argued about whether or not he was intoxicated. He had already slammed his Dodge Dakota into the side of a semi truck to the point where it rocked it over. So he's as dangerous to life and well-being as anybody in this case in terms of how dangerous he is on the road. But because of the stigma and the general hatred for registered sex offenders, there's not going to be any question about the rightfulness or wrongfulness, at least at face value, as to whatever actions this guy takes to apprehend a sex offender. Whereas because Kenneth Herring doesn't have that stigma pre-attached to him, it was easier to portray him as an innocent victim of Hannah Payne. Go ahead.
Nope, you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, this has overtones of a couple cases that we've covered, like
Denise Amber Lee, a 911 caller who, with the same intention as Hannah Payne and the caller in this case, attempted to help police locate Denise Amber Lee in Northport, Florida. But because of problems in the dispatch center, problems with procedure, policy, and myriad other things, the call ultimately didn't go out to a police officer. And what happened to Denise Amber Lee is that she was eventually assaulted and she was killed. And that's probably what would have happened to this 11-year-old, possibly to the 15-year-old. It's possible that had Kenneth Herring not been stopped by Hannah Payne, he may have killed other people. So it really is a life and death question.
It's going to be a judgment call anyway. It's going to be a coordinated communication between the person on the phone, the person on the radio, and the shift commander on the street and the cop that's trying to catch up to everybody. But think about too, if you if you direct your employees as a 911 administrator, no, tell them to keep following. Well, what's keep following mean? We already saw what this did to Hannah Payne. So what does keep following mean? Because do they now have just like we saw Denise Amber Lee, do they now have the power to run red lights? Do they now have
to go down a closed road? I've seen that in my own case. It doesn't have to always be as dramatic as an in-person confrontation, but someone was insisting on following once, and they said, well, now they're going down a closed road. And I said, well, you can be cited for running that barricade and going down a closed road. And they insisted, almost not in legal terms, but almost that the circumstances, exigent as they were, justified that. And now you're trying to break down to them like, no, you're not a cop. You're liable for what you do. And you're taking dangerous and illegal action. From where I'm sitting, it's foreseeable to me that, now that this guy knows that you're going to chase him to the ends of the earth, that you're not a police officer, he's going to start acting out in much more reckless and dangerous ways. We had someone flee the scene of a hit and run the other day, and someone went after them from the hit and run. Well, the roads were icy and snowy, and that's why the vehicle went into the ditch. So now he sees someone following him from the crash. Now he's being pursued, and now he's on dangerous roads. Well, now we're going to have multiple vehicles and other cars getting into accidents because this civilian pursuit is happening. It doesn't always have to be as dramatic as a confrontation like Hannah Payne, but it's completely foreseeable, right? And that's the problem, and that's how negligence and lawsuits get attached to this, because it is foreseeable. The problem is, and the only thing that really bails me out of that is all I can do is sort of tell people what they shouldn't do. I don't actually have any control over them, Drew.
Well, yeah, because the possibilities are endless. I mean, we're not in the business of creating victims.
I saw this comment earlier today. It was on one of the videos I was using when I was researching this case. But Matt Webb, 4830, wrote 6 days ago, "This man is a hero. No dispute there. Thank God he didn't do as dispatch requested and stop following. Thank God he didn't do what the dispatchers told him." So this is a guy here who has very little faith in dispatchers for knowing anything about escalation, about liability, about danger, about exigent circumstances, vicarious victims. He says, dispatch wouldn't have sent law enforcement otherwise. As a father, I would like to buy this man a beer or a coffee anytime. Good job.
That's an asinine theory. Like what makes anyone think they're not mutually exclusive? So like so if you're saying it's not even like they would have hung up, You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if you say stop following them, but I'll keep you on the line so you can give me some updates. Well, what do you think the point of the updates are? It's to get, it's to get somebody out there. I mean, who knows? Maybe they have a helicopter, maybe they have a deputy in the area, maybe they have, but we just can't direct somebody to follow, and we're not behind the wheel either. So, like if they choose to follow, it's kind of their.
We try to kind of skirt the line. I say you're not under any moral or legal obligation to follow. The difference between morality and the law is actually something that few people understand, that that doing the right thing doesn't protect you from legal reprisals or legal responsibility. But take all precautions for your safety. If you happen to be going the same direction, you can let us know what you see. But don't do anything dangerous. Don't speed. If you can't see his license plate, I don't want you driving up real fast behind him and trying to get a picture, and then you roll your car.
Nobody understands what a 911 dispatcher does, one. And two, the only time they hear about what a 911 dispatcher does is when there's this huge mistake, and everybody can dogpile, and everybody can say how horrible how they would have handled it differently, and they don't know. And they just don't know. I mean, so that's yet another reason why we exist, John, hopefully to bridge that gap.
Make sure you hit like and subscribe, and scroll down and leave a comment if you want to see more content just like this.